Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Diary of a Support Worker and other things. And my name's Julie and I've been a support worker for many years, and I hope to shed some light on support work, give some knowledge out for free and just share what we do on a daily basis. I've been a support worker or aged care worker from 1999, and then I became a support worker for an agency and then for day programs that I'm still currently working at, and I've been there for 13 years. So I know heaps. I know a lot. Now, today I would like to talk about block funding, which was the previous model before NDIS came in. And what sort of brought me to do this is I saw a TikToker actually explaining pre-NDIS, and they sort of went back too far. They went back to institutions, but sort of didn't mention sort of just prior to NDIS. Anyway, it was called block funding. And how it worked was, now I've got notes here, so I'll be looking back and forth. So I was working during this time, by the way. It was the government would give you, or I'll start again. The government would give you a whole bunch of money. And when I mean you, I mean the provider. So most providers back then were not-for-profit, mainly like church organisation run providers. So they would be given a whole bunch of money, and the money was actually for different people in that area. So that you might have had a provider looking after 20 people. Well, they got the whole 20 people's money. And of course, some people got more money than others, depending on their disabilities, and they always didn't get it right, just like NDIS. And so they got all this money, and the provider would set up programs and what have you for the people on their books. And quite often it just wasn't fair. Well, actually, it just wasn't fair, really. So if you were a client who required complex needs, and you've got a whole bunch of other people on the books that might be higher functioning, well, they benefited from their money more so than the person whose money it was, So if you're at a day program, it's like I worked at a day program, so the people that were able to get out and about more had a way better time, and the money was sort of kind of spent on them. And the person with complex needs quite often may have just only stayed in-house for the day, or they might have just gone up to the coffee shop for half an hour while the others were all out doing something completely wonderful. And that's sort of how it happened. It wasn't fair. So pros and cons, I guess that's what I'll get into. So a pro would be, and it's mainly a pro for the provider, and that is are able to work out long-term plans over the year, instead of sort of now you sort of got money coming in sporadically from each different individual, where you had all the money already and you knew what to do with it, and you could plan stuff. And of course, the admin of it was easier, and you could track the money a lot easier because the money was going straight to the provider. Well, they had to sort of answer to where the money went and what they did with it. So unlike now, where it's the Wild West, and the NDIA cannot keep track of the funds, and there's all this rorting. Well, that pretty much didn't happen back then because the money went to a provider, and they had to, it was easily proved if they were doing something dodgy. And of course, there was less overheads too because everything was sort of standardized and worked out for the year. So there was sort of no surprises, if you know what I mean. And yeah, so it benefited the provider more than the person, more than the individual. And then cons would be the lack of choice and control. So you just didn't have a say. Your money went here, here, and here, and it sort of might have benefited other people instead of yourself, because you might have had complex needs and you couldn't use it, and it was kind of a waste. And there were waiting lists as well, because there weren't as many providers, and things like speech therapy, things like that. Families basically paid out of pocket for. It wasn't even provided in their plans, or only a small amount. So things got better with the NDIS in that respect. And it was basically just the lack of flexibility. And you could say modern day programs today are still not particularly flexible, but there is more flexibility than there used to be. Now there's much more of a say, and if you don't like it, you take your money elsewhere. That's sort of how it works now. So the NDIS is an improvement of the previous model, and the previous model was an improvement of the previous model, which was institutions. So things got better, but the NDIS is its own entity where there's lots of issues, like rorting is the biggest thing, but there's a lot more autonomy, choice and control. You get a lot more therapies involved in your plan, where you didn't even have a plan before that, back in the block funding days. So yes, things have improved somewhat, sort of, because nothing's ever perfect, is it? So I'll do more videos on NDIS, more videos on support work. I hope you enjoyed this today. I'll keep on going. I'll make some videos on my thoughts and feelings on all sorts of issues, not just support work, but other things too. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And please like and subscribe. Julie Unruly, Diary of a Support Worker, and other things. Thank you. Toodles.